This is our third podcast, our GB performance coaching. We've got Chris again with us today, who was in our first podcast. I think we're just going to look at kind of almost the perilous state of youth rugby in Scotland.
It's a big topic, and perilous is maybe a fair word. I spent a bit of time last night just looking at fixtures and results, just personal curiosity. I remember when I was playing, I used to spend time on a Sunday doing a bit of recovery and rehab, and you check all the men's results within your league, who's playing well, who's not, who's making moves, kind of thing. So I spent a bit of time going through your sort of 15s, 16s, 18s from Cali, North, West, and so on and so forth. And I suppose we only had 3 weeks of fixtures roughly to look at. And yeah, I suppose the alarming thing for me was just about in every league or conference that across the country there was one or two unfulfilled fixtures. There's fixtures being moved or postponed due to teams maybe for player availability. Another thing that came up consistently was, I understand no one wants to report a true score of, say, it was 85-0. No, nobody wants that recorded, but there's quite a lot of clear 50-0s or 53-0s that are up there, and you're a bit like, I wonder what the true reflection of some of these scores would be. Yeah, and I think that, as you then say,
that could be that the game stopped.
Yeah, and it goes development, and so perilous is maybe, it's a really powerful but correct word perhaps for this context.
Yeah, I think it's, I know Bruce Aitchison put on his Happiness is Egg-shaped Facebook page a couple of weeks back about it was a cup competition and the number of fixtures that were unplayed due to insufficient numbers. Now, I can't recall in my time that I've been involved in rugby ever seeing that amount of games unplayed because of lack of players. And I think you have super clubs.
Yep.
You have one in your area.
On my doorstep.
Yeah. There are a few super clubs who are hoovering up talent within their vicinity with no regard for the clubs round about them. Now, I get that they've got to look after their own interests, and that's fine. However, is there a need to have an age group team at under 16 or under 18 level that is 2.5 teams? That to me doesn't make sense, and is probably one of the issues as to why a lot of fixtures, not all of them, but a lot of fixtures are unplayed, because you have clubs, who are maybe 2 or 3 players away from fulfilling a fixture, but those 2 or 3 players have maybe migrated to a bigger club. But those 2 or 3 players might not play in the first team at that club. They might play in their under 18 second team. So I don't get that part of it. I really don't. And I think I think there is a responsibility on the senior clubs managing that better. And I think when you combine that with the lack of funding now that there is from the governing body regarding player development development officer posts, and the lack of funding that's available for that, and the lack of funding that they're willing to actually allocate to these to junior clubs in order to grow the numbers, I think it's a 2-pronged thing as to why we're not getting fixtures fulfilled. I think we have guys, and kids are aspirational. Kids will want to go and play at a club, just one off the top of my head, Stirling.
Yeah.
So, or GHA, and these clubs have got to look after themselves, and quite rightly so. But having 2 and 3 teams at an age group isn't helping those clubs who are surrounding them, like Grangemouth or Falkirk or teams around GHA. And it's not a go at these clubs. It's what's happening. It's players seem to be migrating towards these clubs, and you're not going to turn players away. Nobody's going to turn players away. But if the players who are coming from their club of origin to go to a bigger club, then that club can't fulfil fixtures and it might not have a development officer to create a link between clubs and schools. So it's really dependent on that core player group that they have.
Yeah. I think there's...
And this isn't a go at these clubs.
No.
It's just a fact as to what's happening.
I think I can't speak on behalf of the club that's on my doorstep. I'm lucky enough that I've built up a positive partnership with them, and I understand just as a PE teacher, my first job first and foremost is teaching and education. I just happen to run a really vibrant extracurricular programme.
Yep. So
I want to try and encourage as many players as I can to go, and if they're enjoying the rugby, go pick up a ball, go get more games. Sort of side note, but I'll look back to where I'm going. My point here is I've got limited time for fixtures.
Yeah.
Once the clock changes at Halloween, it's dark by 3 o'clock. It's really difficult for me to get fixtures to be played. So I've hit the ground running. I've already had 3 weeks of fixtures. So for me, I'm finite amount of time. There are 1 or 2 schools that I can depend on who will come and travel, but they'll come en masse for during the day. But I am trying to get my kids as many opportunities to play as possible, because if I don't engage them early, they'll walk.
Yeah.
And I think that coming back round to maybe where those bigger clubs are, I'd be really mindful, and it was something I touched on before, and I've mentioned when we had the New Open Conference. I think it's great that we've got some of the strongest schools and clubs having a go at each other and really doing that, and maybe then opens up the playing field perhaps in other areas for other conferences and leagues and other abilities. That's really good, because we want our top players playing against each other consistently. It raises the standard in the game. Fantastic. What I'd be wary and mindful of is, where do all these other players get their game time? Where are their opportunities? That, let's say you are that under 18 player where you think this was maybe going to be my big year at under 18s. I've sat behind 1 or 2 other players. It's now I'm the person in that position. But flock of new players arrive from various other clubs or schools, from anywhere up to about an hour and a half away, sometimes even more. That kid's not playing. There's real pressure on that person then. Well, do I stay and just be a good teammate and not really get a lot of game time and reward for my fees that I'm paying, my training I'm putting myself on the line for, when some of these kids have got hires, jobs, bits and pieces to go? I think they'll maybe just fall off, and that's the last thing we need in Scottish rugby, because that links to the original point of unfulfilled fixtures. I'd rather see these kids play and play somewhere and do something. So I think it's a case of, as you mentioned, maybe management of big squads. Do we then have to look at, okay, do we need to look at, say, clubs at 16s and 18s merging and keeping identity perhaps at a first 15 level? It's just a random thought came to my head the other day, going, the amount of, you look at the men's leagues, for example, because there's the Premiership, and you come down and there's 10 or 12 teams in each of those leagues. How few of them actually can then boast to say that they have, say, an 18s, a 16s, a 15s. Quite a lot say they've got a junior or a mini section of some capacity. And I'm not saying every club needs to have that lock stock from P3, P1 all the way through to under 18s. Sometimes it's just not feasible. You don't have the numbers where you are. But I think aspirationally every club would like to have that pathway system.
And I don't think there's many of those clubs who are actually far away from having to amalgamate at senior level, let alone junior level.
And it was funny, this. It came from somewhere totally random. I was trying to view a couple of houses. Me and my wife were looking to make a move, and bumped in it was out in the Bishop Briggs area. And the guy said, "Oh, I played for Glens back in the day." So we just got chatting about rugby, dead pally. And it's like, oh, it's a real shame, because it could be such a great place to go, but we just don't get many kids playing these days. And how do you find that at your school? And then I was like, well, actually, I'm maybe not the person here. I'm almost buck that trend, that because I invest so heavily in the youth, that I'm almost getting to the point where I've got not too many kids. I've got just the right number to manage. Kids can play. Couple of injuries, call-offs, maybe you were off school this week, so you're not picked to play. It naturally creates a cycle for me. But he was then saying, oh, it's one thing that maybe I would hate to see the club not be as busy and vibrant, but he recalls his days when it was busy. And I'm like, well, you've got another good rugby club just along the road there. There's Lindsay. But I understand when you want to try and maybe mix those two together, there's the big, it's not going to happen, but for the greater good of the game, if you put that hat on,
it's going to have to.
All of a sudden we could be opening up 16s and 18s and 15s and more girls playing opportunities, which I think is a really kind of overlooked area. That there's definitely value in, okay, you've got maybe 10 or 12 players, we've got 10 or 12 players, some joint up thinking here, just going, there's a squad. That then for me, there's another squad, and there's 20, 25 kids getting a game of rugby at a weekend. Without
Like,
it, there's no opportunity.
No, and again, it's not a go at these clubs. You know, that's not what I'm doing in any way. Having a go at the likes of Stirling or GH area, they run very good clubs all the way right through, minis to seniors. You know, the proof is in the pudding, and
Absolutely.
they offer, you know, top coaching. Clubs are run by, you know, volunteers. Commercially, they're very well run. Uh, all three clubs are doing very well, but you know and I'm not saying it's only them. You know, there are certain clubs as well, you know, in Edinburgh who have enough for two teams at 16s as well, two teams at 18s, and you're thinking to yourself, well, okay, but there's going to come a point where they teams aren't going to get teams to play against, because the teams that they would play against are where the players have came from.
Mm-hmm.
Not all of them, some of them.
Yeah.
Some of them might have come right through, say, the Boroughmuir Academy.
Yeah.
All the way right through. Some might have moved in from another club. So I just think between that and, you know, the development officer roles significantly being reduced, you've got no conduit from then to get players from schools to club.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's a real bugbear of mine, because, you know, when I was the development officer in the Garnock Valley, we had, you know, I started off part-time for the first 2 years, and I was full-time for the last 3 years, and then the thing turned on its head completely. And that was a junior football stronghold. That was your Beath, Dalry, Kilbirnie, three towns in North Ayrshire that would ding-dong battle with each other. And, you know, over time, there was investment with modern apprentices as well. We managed to get teams at every primary school, managed to get teams every age group at the local secondary, and then it filtered its way into the club. But if you're not in a position to fund that as a club yourself, and you're not getting funding from Scottish Rugby, the number of players is going to decrease. And where is your next superstar coming from? Because if you look at superstars at the moment in Scottish Rugby, Finn Russell came from the state school, came from Stirling County, Falkirk, Ayr. And if you don't have players coming through, then you seriously reduce the risk, I would say, of stunting that development going forward.
Do you think we're at a potential crossroads within?
I think it's a watershed.
At that sort of grassroots level of, do we focus on growing the game, increasing player participation and player numbers, female, male, at that sort of 10 to 16, 17-year-old? Should we focus in on that? Or do you think that we're actually now, are we maybe going the other way and we're maybe a bit heavy focused on top-end performance? I only use that because topically at the minute, the big thing is this open conference. And I see firsthand, I'm very lucky that I've got kids who, over the past 2 or 3 weeks, for 16s and 18s, have been involved in A squads or B teams. I've also got a couple of kids who have been schoolboy rugby with me for 5 or 6 years, and I've yet to see their name listed on a team sheet. Now, that doesn't mean they're terrible players. It just means that the club that Wallace naturally feeds into is part of this open conference, and there's huge numbers in its competition. I'm just wondering where does the priority really lie? Should it, and again, I don't know if it's a definitive answer, maybe an open question, but it's that, should it lie with participation, growth, enjoyment, playing, increasing numbers, in which case talent will appear out of that, and then we put those players into that competitive environment? Or are we now focusing in on trying to provide an opportunity for top-end competitive to maybe fill the gulf of, to find that next superstar? I think there's an argument for both cases. I just don't know, or I couldn't confidently identify where I think the overall priority is within Scottish Rugby.
No, I don't think it's clear. And to be fair, when I look at any kind of literature that's come out online or, you know, on social media, I haven't seen a plan yet which says this is where we're going, and this is this is how we're doing it. I've not seen that. Now, it may well be out there, but I'm on social media all the time. I'm on SIU website all the time. You know, you're speaking to people within clubs on a daily basis. schools on a daily basis, you're not seeing that information come out or that plan come out. Now, there must be a plan, but it's certainly not out there. And I think it shows that there's maybe a lack of a plan because of we're continuing to bumble along with fixtures being unfulfilled. Now, I know they made 30 redundancies within the rugby development department, which is massive.
Yeah, I think
massive.
that can't be overlooked. I think we're now at that point of 30 redundancies. I mean, these are people that we've probably rubbed shoulder with over the past sort of 5, 6, 7, 10 years. People we know, good rugby people who they are, I call them like cones and whistle people. People who are on the ground, they're at the coal face, they're in and out of clubs, they're in and out of schools. I think they're so crucial to the game and actually giving, for me, the kids a point of reference that I'm lucky enough that I've got a club that's on my doorstep that I work heavily with and have done. But that's taken, I've been in my school for 13, 14 years, that it's taken time and effort to build positive relationships. We're now at the stage of they've got some MAs and I am doing my best, but those MAs are also spread across the authority doing the bit of, well, we see what Wallace has got. We have an inbuilt rugby programme. Can we go and support elsewhere? Which is rightly so. I have no right to claim the time of these MAs and all of the club's time, but they come in and support me as and where I can. They are great people and point of reference for my kids because I can't be everywhere. I can't be at the school and at the club. I very much keep my school hat on 99% of the time. I support and bolster what the kids do and very much compliment it, and happy to work with coaches and any staff at the club to complement what they're doing and what I'm doing. So it's a bit more joined up thinking. But if there wasn't that person for the kids as a shared face, and I'm lucky those MEs are quite happy when they come along. They'll come and watch a fixture, or they'll maybe run the water on, they'll keep scores, there'll be team managers from maybe some of my teams, and they've done that so far in my first sort of 2 or 3 fixtures. The 4 or 5, I've actually had quite good success that I've actually got 4 or 5 new players already from first year, girls and boys, who've gone down to the club, and when they've gone down there, I saw such and such, or I saw such and such, they were at Wallace. That's a friendly face. I think kids maybe need that sometimes, and without that, because of those huge redundancies, maybe parents, players, teachers, staff, they're looking for a point of reference, and if there's not one there, it's just another barrier for kids to come in or families to access the game.
Yeah, and kids who are in schools, a large majority of them will be more comfortable going to a club if they know that the development officer who's delivered the sessions when the school is going to be there.
Friendly face.
That's the key thing, and not having that seriously reduces the chance of kids going along, because they'll be like, do I know anybody there? Now, if they don't know someone who within their group at school is playing there, they're not going to go. Whereas if they know, the development officer, he's been, yeah, I know, I'll go, and then they see that person when they turn up, because the good development officers are the guys who are there in school and at the club when these age groups are training, so they can be that face that people and parents, more importantly as well,
recognise.
See, but if you don't have those guys in post, then that all goes to pot.
And do we think then, I maybe touched on, where is the real priority? Is it investing in grassroots and kids learning and developing and playing and enjoying their rugby? Or is it the performance thing? Or actually do we go, well, we actually need staff in place to make these things happen? Could both things happen?
I think the performance level actually looks after itself, to be fair. If you're looking at the Open Conference,
there's no school or club in there who can't almost
look after themselves.
Run themselves. Yeah,
right. So
where should the priority and effort go?
It's got to be below that. It's got to be below that. And that's not saying that you let these clubs, carry on doing what they're doing, and if they need support, the likes of Stirling or Muir or clubs like that in Ayr, they need support. They're entitled to as much support as anybody else. But that would again mean that you can target funding and target player retention at age groups or clubs who really need it. So your surrounding clubs of maybe these clubs like Ayr is maybe Kilmarnock, Irvine, Stirling is maybe Falkirk, Grangemouth, Boroughmuir is maybe Royal High or Carstorphine or whoever, and actually target the surrounding clubs to support them and target the funding and target the the support that you can give them. And I know Boroughmuir, working as part of the head of academy at Kirstofan, I've we're going to have a very much at the start, but a kind of link up with Boroughmuir to make sure that we can fulfil fixtures, but at the same time potentially get games against them and create that link, which is going to strengthen our youth section and what we're trying to do. Just wondering if that's maybe another option for the likes of Stirling to maybe do with someone else, or I don't know, Melrose to do with Earlston, or whatever. However that, like, Hoyk with Hoyk Harlequins, or Hoyk with Hoyk, whoever, So is that an avenue that could maybe be looked at? But again, I don't think unless a directive had to come from the governing body saying this is actually going to be part of your club development funding, that you need to be doing this with your local clubs, it's not going to happen.
It's that.
I don't think it's going to happen. Would you think it's going to happen?
Wishfully, I would like it to happen.
And that's how we were really not surprised, really positive this week to kind of have a look at that with Boroughmuir, because obviously they run a really good academy, and they've come out of they've come out of Super Six and their first team on National One, I'm sure. So they're a club who want to kick on and develop their own. Yep. And for us or for Kirstofan Cougars, that'll help our youth section. Obviously, we're still going to target bringing in our own players from the local schools, etc., etc. However, having that link where you can kind of rely on the bigger club to give a bit of support, whatever that support looks like, it's something.
It's maybe dodged your first question, but just linking on the word support there. Again, I'm sure someone
don't
will...
dodge. No. Don't dodge.
I know.
Dodge, dive.
That's it. The word support there, I'm 90% sure, and again, I'm sure someone will let me know if I've got this wrong, but I'm sure there's now, in terms of support, West of Scotland, really proud club, founding member of the SRU. I've had friends who've come through that club. I've had family friends who played for it in generations before I was even here, kind of thing. Really proud club. I think they've seen something that they're actually linking in with the University of Glasgow now. So that provides support to a university club, which for me, they can only play X amount of time for the year. I've been a uni student. I played for Glasgow University myself. And it was that sense of we probably were just a bunch of young lads just running around trying to make rugby happen with no real clear directive or support. There's no real coaching. There was nothing real place. We just policed ourselves. Whereas I think that's a great way in terms of how can West of Scotland, with great facilities, a good proud history, they run two teams plus a women's team, that how can they then support a university club to stand its own 2 feet, but also then know that when you guys finish playing rugby, like university rugby is your priority. When you finish that, as a club here on your doorstep, that's shared resources, shared facilities, that's shared players, that's access to coaching, that's upskilling, that's a win-win-win. I'm wondering if that type of support, as you say, with something like you watered it down and just changed the dimension slightly to, could some of our really established clubs, so maybe your Ayers, your Stirling, your Boroughmuirs, your Curries, 4 or 5 other big clubs across the country, could they be looking at going, actually, we have almost a duty of care to the game and almost leave the club identity out of it to then support our players and coaches, not only within our club but in our club environment and settings surroundings. Because I think if every club sat down and looked at their entire player list and maybe that club of origin, like I started my playing days at Alloa and loved it, and any chance I've had the opportunity to take the kids that I've played with at Wallace back to go and play Alloa down at Earlsfield, I love that. It's just complete nostalgia for me. So I think that's where there's opportunities perhaps in the club game, and I don't know if it really works in schools because there's so much identity, but within the club game I think there's room for support there. How that's accessed and funded, that would need to come from the top. That is way above my pay grade, just as a teacher and an advocate for the game.
It's currently costing, what is it, Scottish Rugby's £10 million in debt with now is that I don't know what the portion of that is towards the pro game, or in any other kind of aspects within the game in Scotland, what's created that day, or is that what it's going to be every year to float the two professional teams? I don't know. So if that's the case, you're going to hit someone somewhere in order to be able to continue funding what you are supporting.
Yeah.
And at this moment in time, it very much seems to be clubland. And I speak to parents on a daily basis. I'm actually going to watch a young lad, Sean. I do one-to-one coaching sessions with the GHA this afternoon to watch him play. And I'm really looking forward to that because I'm really looking to see, how it's ran down there. I'm looking forward to getting a feel for it, and because by all accounts it's a very, very good setup. But I speak to parents on a kind of daily basis, and there seems to be a kind of, I don't know, a kind of, not a malaise. That's the wrong word. But people are upset. People are genuinely worried about how the club game is going to sustain itself in the coming years. People are worried that as clubs, going to, are they going to fold? Because if you think about a rugby club, from minis to under 18s, it's a massive membership base. That's your club.
Huge
right?
numbers, yeah.
It's not that's your club, but that's a big part of your club.
It's your foundations of your pyramid.
Now, if you lose that, there's nothing underneath you. And when you look on the Scottish Rugby website about these teams who aren't able to fill fixtures, and this is what I'm saying, it's not just going to be soon, it's not going to be...
It's now.
It's now.
It's happening. Yep.
It's going to happen at senior level as well. And as soon as that happens, it's a pack of cards, because... And I think they seriously run the risk of one club goes, another one goes, and another one goes, because some clubs are literally keeping their head above water, day-to-day stuff, week to week. Now, we're not just talking about clubs who are in regional leagues. We're talking about clubs who are pretty established, and they're fighting month on month to pay bills, electricity, gas, the whole lot. Let alone fund a development officer role.
Paying to keep the floodlights on for training.
And that's what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I don't actually think people have an understanding of how serious it is. When they look at unfulfilled fixtures, it's unfulfilled fixtures, they don't happen. They never happened when I played. They never happened 5 years ago, 6, 7 years ago. They're now happening now in 2025. So I would like to know what the plan is.
So, perfect. Do you think more of a light needs to be shone on this issue? Yes, the unfulfilled fixtures is that what comes after the equal sign, to use maybe an educational pun here? It's that sense of this plus this plus this equals unfulfilled fixtures. Well, let's look at the first half of that mathematical problem. Is it then a lack of a player base? Is it a lack of people investing in the club? Is it a lack of footfall through the door for people buying in from a pie on a Saturday to their wee laddie goes and watches the play,
and
or
I get
a
it's
wee girl's buying her training kit because she's coming out to training? Like, all that is money that
Yeah.
goes back into the club. Now, I understand money must go out to buy certain things, to bring things in, etc., etc. I understand that. I get how the process works. But if, as you say, if you didn't have that foundation in place, then the unfulfilled fixtures is just the tip of the iceberg of what we're going to start to see. I think it'd be a really sad day as someone, from my perspective, who just loves the game and just wants to see as many, I suppose in my role, just as many young adults, and I'm talking, the area I really work with is that sort of P7, so that kind of 11, 12-year-old before they arrive to Wallace, just get them excited about rugby. Giving up my free time when I've got, during the exam window, during May, I try and invite as many P6s and P7s, girls and boys along, just put a ball in your hand. You might really enjoy it. How to get that all the way up to 18, get them enjoying the sport. I would hate to then see those kids not have an opportunity to go and play for clubs across the country as adults because those clubs don't exist. That, for me, is the day when, it's a really difficult thing to say, but that's when rugby dies. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. When I look at, we were down at Hoyk yesterday.
Which one? Because there's 3
Hoyk
clubs right in a row.
Hoyk
Yeah.
Harley. Yeah. Aye, sure it was. And lost in the last minute. Listen, it was to and fro. Club rugby at its best.
But that's what you want.
Right, it was it was side to side. It was guys going for it. Real physicality, just a real good club game. And you wonder how 3 clubs in Hoyk are surviving.
Back to back to back. For those who might not know that Hoyk geography of just going, there's that huge big park with the big concrete stand. There's another one behind it. And they're almost like that's the biggest brother, the little brother. It's like Goldilocks.
And it's unreal how they are still able to put out those number of teams. And I think that's credit to people like that, to volunteers.
One town.
Aye, one town.
One town. It's amazing.
And that's and when you look at the demographic of where we're in kind of Edinburgh, where I'm coaching, senior coaching now, you've got Forrester, you've got Carstorphine, you've got Royal High, you've got Inverleith, and then obviously surrounding that, you've got Leith, you've got Portobello. I must have missed someone. I will have missed someone. Someone will be like, you never mentioned it. Anyway, so
someone will get you in the comments.
When you look at that number of clubs in that area and their fielding teams, it's phenomenal. But it's underneath that where it's almost the floorboards are moving,
right?
Where it's like, we don't have a youth section. How's your senior section? Well, surviving because we get students, or we have guys who've played here, or their relatives will always play here, they'll never play anywhere else, or whatever, blah blah. But that can only last for so long. And I get now there are so many different things for young players to do now, so many different things for young kids to do. But if we don't have a structure in place, or a certain amount of funding, or a pathway, for want of a better expression, to get kids from school to club, and that's normally a development officer, it's normally a modern apprentice, it's normally a club player who's maybe a teacher in the area, or whatever. If you don't have that, then if that player is not wanting to do X, Y, or Z and does want to come and play rugby, he can't. Because you don't have that someone who's able to arrange with schools to get kids along to the club, or arrange buses, or just stuff that you have to do.
Yep.
Then it's flying down a barrel of a gun, I think.
We need to reduce as many perceived or actual barriers for kids to access the sport as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And if that's just me, for example, by offering a rugby programme within my school, or if it's me actually just picking up the phone to a local club and just going, look, I'm here, I'm trying to do this, how can you help me out? And it takes a bit of that, but that's down to me, and I'm one person. It means nothing. It's a pebble in a pond. But across the country, if there was more of I joined up thinking with that, which needs to be a clear directive from, I think, the top there, that we have people in place to do that and try to join up some of these dots. I suppose one of my biggest frustrations is I would love to see where are the other Chrissies and where are the Gavs in the country. Can we get some joined up thinking with these coaches and these teachers and go, right, where can we then support one another in terms of, right, I'm struggling with coaching this, I need to learn this from you, so I'd maybe go to you for that. Or I'm actually looking for fixtures for, say, my under 14 girls, right, I've actually got a group of girls here, why don't you come to me? I think that better, clearer joined up thinking, as opposed to everyone's got their cards close to their chest. No one's wanting to put their cards on the table and just go, I'm struggling with this, this and this. So rather than shining a light on it, which maybe we touched on, we need to get more light on some of our issues we're having, so perhaps we can then solve problems across a bigger area, rather than just maybe that insular one school or one club fixing all their problems.
I mean, I often wonder, we used to have, I'm sure we used to have like area development officers. Like North Lanarkshire would have a development officer. We don't even have that now in North Lanarkshire. We used to have 2 development officers. They don't even have that now. So obviously Grant at Cumbernauld, who does an outstanding job, honestly, his work ethic is through the roof, and he's so well respected by the people in and around the club at Cumbernauld, and such a good guy, a rugby man, but it's him, himself, and him. you know.
Yeah.
And it for an area, you know, like Cumbernaul's a big area, right? You know, the surrounding area,
Easily accessible.
right? Yep, M80, whatever.
Just off the motorway.
But he's doing it. He's doing it on his own. You know, and now don't get me wrong, it's not just Scottish Rugby, it's, you know, the local authorities get a part to play, because you often find that these development officer roles are three-way splits. You know, you've got club, local authority and Scottish Rugby. And it's up to Scottish Rugby to pitch its case to the local authority to draw down funding, I think. You know, and you know, they have a responsibility to its members to continue that development work that is ongoing, or that's maybe just started, or it's maybe flailing, you know, but what's the check-in? And that's what I would like to know. What's the check-in between, or what's the communication between club and union? In sense of, if there's a development officer who's struggling, who's he communicating that to? Who's he getting support from?
That would be my biggest one.
Who's he communicating with? Who does he communicate with at the union? What support can he access?
What support's available?
What funding can he access? And what's available to the club as a whole? Now, I think clubs do get a certain amount of funding, and I might be wrong when I'm saying this. It could be on the number of teams that they're able to field. I'm not sure, but there is a certain amount of funding. However, surely the funding that clubs receive should be on their need.
That would seem to me to be the
on
logical
their
sense.
need. You know, we have 2 teams at Minis. We have 1 team in our youth section. Right. Well, what are we doing?
We need to triple that.
Yeah. What are we doing?
Common sense would be...
And the clubs will know what they need to do. The clubs will know what schools they need to get into. They'll know what funding they need. They'll know what support they need. But where's the communication? Who are they communicating with? And what feedback are they getting?
Yep. The sense of who do you go to for help and support, I think, is a big one. And for someone who... I was chatting to a teacher at school down in Dumfries, and it was a friend of a friend. He reached out, kind of thing, and he just generally had some questions. Not a PE teacher, just reached out with some questions. Just going, I'm trying to get rugby going. I've got this, that, and the other. What advice can you give to someone in my position, which is essentially where I was about 12 or 13 years ago when I started in my rugby journey, to build a rugby programme. And I gave him my best advice, and he said, thank you for that, because I wouldn't have known where to go to or where to turn to. Now, I'm not Yoda. I don't have all the answers. I'm just going, I've just got 12 or 13 years experience at the coal face of going, I've tried to build something, but I had to start way back when, and it was, you'd have kids come along from a rugby trial, and there would be 7 or 8 kids, and like, oh, am I going to get in? Of course you're getting in. I've not even got double figures. It's a no-brainer. Yeah. And I would hate to ever tell a kid no. So, whereas it's funny, one of those similar kids who had that very similar experience in the early days then came back along after graduating uni just to help out at a rugby game one day, and he stood back flabbergasted going, there's an S1 team, there's an under-14 girls team, there's an S2 team, there's 3 games of rugby all going at the same time, and I'm sitting in the middle of a head in a swivel. There's senior pupils doing a bit of coaching, there's sports leaders getting some leadership hours in, there's just the involvement. It goes, it wasn't like this when I was here 10 years ago. I'm like, no, but if it wasn't for you, this wouldn't happen. So like, thank you for your service. But I was at that point where I didn't really have anyone that I felt I could turn to. So I felt really empowered by that, since I could pass on some wisdom to someone else who's starting that journey. But the same thing for, say, local authorities, teachers, new coaches. Where do they go for their support? Who do they access, and what support is available? I think, if I'm honest, unless you maybe know someone or someone who can put you in point of reference, someone, you're going to struggle to come up with a list.
There's very little.
Even on things aspirationally of where you want to go to learn more about coaching. Yes, Scottish Rugby offer level 2s, level 3s, and so on and so forth. But even just a lot of the things that are online game access now, that's really, really good. But I think watching certain things on videos it's good to a certain extent. I think the power of actually attending that at some form of online course, what they used to do.
Classes.
So, I mean, I went to loads of them. And I found that hugely beneficial. That I'm a visual learner, and I've found through experience that the vast majority of my players, girls and boys, who are learning the game, they need to see it. So quite often I've learned just in my practice, I suppose it's easy as a teacher because it's natural for me, is you set something up, but you'll pick maybe 4 or 5 kids to run a demonstration who are likely to understand it verbally and probably be able to execute it to some degree of success in the demo, that you then get the other kids to join in on the back of that. So they maybe take the 2nd or 3rd place in the queue on the line so they can see it 2 or 3 times. But that in itself is naturally providing support to the kids and how they learn a skill. It's the same for coaches, how I prefer to learn. I'd much rather come and watch a great coach at, say, Watson's or Stu Mel or Ayr or Boroughmuir, or I'd rather do that. Or when I've been really fortunate where you've managed to come along to Wallace High School and give some of your free time up to come and work with my kids and support them on their player journey. I've thoroughly enjoyed that because I can then just step back, and it's a great system for my kids because it's a different voice and it's a different level of coaching knowledge you can tap into, which I think is beneficial for you and for me. But I get to learn from you. So that support is massively required for anyone who's trying to develop rugby in the country.
And I think the pro master classes that Scottish Rugby used to run were invaluable. They were brilliant. You know, I remember going to watch one. I don't know when it had been, back maybe 2012, 13. It was Graham Steadman was in one pitch, who was the Scotland defence coach. You had Stevie Scott.
Yeah, Stevie Scott. Yeah,
specialist skills.
He's down to Bath now, isn't he?
You had Gregor Townsend doing a session on another pitch, and there was someone doing scrum, I can't remember, but you would just rotate round. And I remember coming home with pads and clips of letters, you know. But so those opportunities for coaches aren't there
as frequently. I know Scottish Rugby run their big, the big day in the bowl,
conference.
The conference, yeah, the big whole day thing. Now that's great, and I know I'm the minority and I'm singling myself out here. I'd love to go and attend a lot of these things, but with someone who's got a big commute from Glasgow to work Monday through Friday, with a very patient wife anyway, to then ask her, I'm actually going to go and take on the whole day Saturday or whole day Sunday, because it's hugely beneficial.
Aye.
I think I'd love to go, the amount of coaches they get, the names they get, the support they get, but that being a one-off day, yes, make that one day massive. Go all in on that.
I'm pretty fortunate.
Where does your coach from, say, I'm picking some towns out, maybe Oban, Moffat, Angus, Inverness.
I think there is an opportunity.
Where do they go? That's an entire day. We need to maybe look at maybe in my head it's just, I think I've just got this fairy tale dream of just there's cash and it's endless supplies and we can go and support people, because that's just what I would love to see happen. But roadshows, do we need to take these things on the roads?
Aye.
Do you know what I mean?
I think that's a good idea, and I think when you do that, generate interest within the area.
And take it away from, sorry to interrupt, take it away from the big established clubs. Like, I would love to see something like that at maybe Moffat, a Clydebank, take it to a Paisley, take it to somewhere where all of a sudden where all this
and why
signage...
why we do our camps, why I do my camps at these clubs is because of that, because of kids not having, or parents or coaches, readily accessible to these type of players. And the players that come along are brilliant. You know, Matt Fagerson at Cumbernauld, superb, brilliant. You know, he's his
top of the game in the minute for Glasgow. He's poster boy.
He the way he spoke to the kids, he joined in the session, he demonstrated the drill. He was brilliant. You know, at Moffat we had Matt Scott. We had a clinic not that long ago at Kirstoffer where we had Steve Laurie and Glenn Young. Steve Laurie's one of the best coaches in Britain. I think he's outstanding.
Can you send him to Wallace for a wee shameless plug?
You can message him.
I'll get your number.
So aye, I mean, it's just trying to give, as you say, kids at local clubs, not necessarily the more established clubs, an opportunity to see these guys.
And I think as well, taking something like that, like a roadshow idea, and taking it on the road to clubs where there is need, maybe to use that phrase you touched on earlier, to use the need. I think the community, the local authority, the primary schools, the high schools, knowing that I suppose the monster that is Scottish rugby is coming to town, and that there is rugby roadshows where we're actually here for maybe 2 nights back to back, or we're doing like just actually this week we're doing Tuesday and we're doing Thursday, we're doing whatever on both nights kind of thing, or we're actually looking at a Saturday and a Sunday where we're going to go all in. You can come to what you want. All of a sudden, it's a huge influx of energy for rugby in that area. And then ideally for me, rather than just taking that roadshow away, by all means roll that fantastic thing into another town, let them experience that positivity. What are we leaving in place there? So what's then left on the back of it is that actual access to coaches and support should you need it. Here's a number, here's an email address, pick up the phone, keep doing what you're doing. We understand that you're in a bit of a fight and you're battling. We appreciate that. This is what we're doing to support it. And see, even just putting that, snippets of that on social media, just to blow that up and give that recognition, that 10 seconds of fame in the limelight, that could be more than enough, I think, for some places, just as a bit of a taster.
You talked about going to watch coaches at Stewmell and you know, the kind of likes of Watson's. I mean, I'm really fortunate. I coach alongside a guy at under 15s, and he is an ex-international coach, and the amount of learning, session on session, that I'm getting from him is... You're just like, you know, you have your coaching philosophy as an individual, and sometimes when you're in a position of one-to-one coaching, the young players are always looking to you. When you're a head coach of a senior club, the players are all looking to you. But sometimes when you work alongside someone who you're maybe sharing a role with, and they have massive experience, you don't see your deficiencies as such, but you can see how to get better.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things when you look at the independent schools, is that you have rafts of talent all the way right through them. Guys who've been at the very top of the game, players and coaches, who are giving, you know, that knowledge to these schools, and that's obviously a big part to play in how these are top performing schools, because of the knowledge that they're imparting to these young players who are on their journey. But it's been a learning, it's been a really good learning experience for me. We're only 3 games in. You know, I get to work with this guy right to the end of the season. Yeah, so you know?
That's really good individual development, not only for you as a coach, but also individual and collective learning and development on these players for their journey for the season or seasons to come. So that development that they're then getting, and that's like you stepping away from these road shows or these masterclass sessions, or just watching other coaches coach and coming away with pads. Again, I'm a scribbler. I've still got I've got like a scribble one that when I see something I do it, and then I'll trial that 3 or 4 times and go, that actually doesn't work in my context. I need to dial that down a wee bit, or actually I'm actually going to change that and put footwork fend offload into that, or I'm actually going to add something else in, and then it goes into my neat one, which is spend summer holidays, and I brush up on the neat one. I get a few extra ones that they go into the bank. So for me, a lot of those drills there, for me, my kids all know it, and I name some of the drills, so when I shout out the name of the drill, they know what it is. It's a banked one to go to, which is really good. But yeah, that individual development, not only for you as a person and a coach, links to that. Where does the support go to that other person?
There's something that's maybe been missed, is that these coaches who are working in these schools or clubs, top end clubs, Scottish Rugby could utilise them in the community.
Yeah.
Scottish Rugby could utilise, you know, someone from Watson's, Stewmell, you know, Dollar, wherever, and say, could you run a session that's in line with how we want to play the game at Scotland 18s and 19s? I want to play the game this way. So could you run a session that can show youth section coaches in Scotland, this is how we're going to play it under 18 or under 16 or whatever it is, and so we can then empower the coaches and show the players, actually, this is what they're looking for at this level. So I don't know if that would be something. You know, obviously they would need to, again, it would come down to money.
Yes, it does come down to money, but also then you are potentially dependent on those coaches in those environments being able to give up their time to do that. I'm very willing, and again, I am not the fountain of knowledge of coaching. I very much just do. I try and stay in my own lane. I very much coach what I've got, stick to my strengths. I'm very mindful of, like you said there.
Scrumming line out for me.
Oh, so it's like, that's fine. Play to your strengths. I love coaching skills. I love developing skills in isolation, then under pressure, then making them game realistic. I try and build it in for my kids because I work heavily with that lower end of the scale of kids at 11 to 15 to 16 is where most of my coaching time for in terms of on the grass, boots, cones and whistle, that's where I'm at. I then like to push and challenge kids at 16s and 18s, but also then remind them actually there's still a bit of a development need there, and easy to humble them and bring them back down. But I'm willing to give up my time, and I've offered it to other staff across the authority, just going, if you want to come and see what I do, you want to come and learn something, primary teachers, this, that and other. And I'm quite fortunate that some of the primary teachers in the area have come and we've ran little clinics, but that's me doing all the legwork, that's me sending out the emails, me inviting them, finding a time to suit, and that's really difficult for staff. But I would like to think there's got to be other Gavs and Chrissies and other people around the country at other schools and clubs who'd be like, I'm happy to come on board. This is when we train. It's almost open doors. And just come along. Yeah, I've already opened and engaged in dialogue with the local club that is linked to me at Stirling, just going, okay, when are big groups for me are sort of like the 14s girls, 15s, 16s, 18s boys. When are they all training and whatnot? Next time it's evenings. That doesn't really line for me at the minute because obviously a young family commuting back home. But that won't be the case for forever. But then I'm also I'm always looking at fixtures. When can I get along and see the kids play? When can I do that? When can I see their coaches work with those players so I can learn something from them? Because as a one-man band, I'm always looking for another support and not someone to come in. So when you come in, great. Any other contacts I can find who want to come into Wallace and either like learn how to coach or what does it look like or anything like that, or better yet, come and support me so I can see what I need to learn more from. I'm all for that. I think maybe some people might be a bit too precious and be very fearful. No, that's my programme, whereas I'm not that. I'm always want to try and learn and get better.
Coach development is ultimately needed in order for our players to get better. You know what it's like yourself. If you're drilling the same thing week in, week out, the kids don't see any development on the pitch or any progression. They're like, what's going on here? You know, and I think I'm coaching in the East now at senior level, and really good bunch of boys I'm working with. Christoph, and really want to learn, really want to work hard, want to do their work-ons before. And it's been a long time since I've worked actually with a group of players who are so tight, do everything together, have such a high work ethic and want to improve. So when you get a group like that, it makes you better. You need to be better because and that's what I've found with my coaching is that I've thought, right, okay, so I'm not now at the point where I'm coaching a team developmentally. You're always going to have that element because you have to, your core skills need to be nailed. But now, because of their willingness to learn and their ability to take on board information and understanding, we're now almost at, okay, how do we play the game? So you're trying to combine the nuts and bolts with how we're going to play in certain areas of the pitch. And I think as a coach, player groups like that make coaches better.
Yeah.
But I think coaches still have this responsibility to be not just delivering the same, not even the same drills, the same type of session on session, because it's lazy coaching. Whereas if you can be innovative even in the smallest way, that you're still getting across the key point or the key theme of how you're wanting to play, but using a different scenario.
Yep.
And that again comes to experience within coaching, knowing how to do that, knowing when to do it, knowing when to be hard, knowing when to go a bit easy, and again, I think with developing players, it's not an exact science. I think, every player's, individually different, obviously, physically, mentally, and getting to know your players is obviously key as part of that. But I think in terms of how to accelerate a group's development is down to the environment the coach creates, but it has to create a learning environment which has to show that kind of almost, that they've went and upskilled themselves. This isn't just me. This is what I've learned throughout the years. This is what I've done over 13, 14 years. I've been really bad here, but I've been really good here.
Mm-hmm.
But I've made the bad bit better because, or that aspect of my coaching better,
Keeping reflective,
because I've thought about it and I've used that experience to do that, and probably now I feel I'm coaching as well as I ever have, you know. And I think that, but that I maintain that is down to how they've receptive been towards me, what that relationship's like. And as a coach, when it's hard or you're not winning, it can become very like, just do as I say, just do that, and that's it. You know, and the players not tip their cap and go, and that's it, and then they're running away after training, going,
aye, that can curb individuality, creativity, those moments of brilliance.
And there's some brilliant characters in it. There's some in our squad, in the squad today, there are some brilliant characters in it. Guys that actually make me belly laugh at training sometimes, just with how they are. But it's it's almost like
keeps you human.
Aye, it's like a wee cocoon that I like. I like being in that. I like being in that environment where I'm like, right, I know I can have a laugh, but I know these guys are aspirational, and I know these guys will work hard, and I know they'll go and leave everything out there for 80 minutes. So I know we're in a good place. But it's probably taken me. In fact, it's probably been about 10 years since I've been in that environment.
Yeah.
You're the last time. And in some aspects, all right, okay, we've won one, we've lost one by a point yesterday, but, you know, we're in a good place. Guys are learning, you know, how I want us to play, you know, and we're going to be good. We are, but I know we are. And it's just, it's that bond, and sometimes it fits. Sometimes a coach and a player group fits.
Totally.
And it just goes and it runs seamlessly. And there's other times it's a bit of a battle, and then eventually it settles down, and then there's times it just doesn't work.
Yep.
This time for me, it's not been seamless because we've had to try and get across how we want to play the game and how we want to do certain things at certain areas of the pitch, and it's not what they're used to be doing. However, open mindset right for the start, right from 1 to 22 or 30, when we've had guys like that number at training, and they're saying, right, okay, you know, and we're happy to do that. We'll back that.
I think from what you're listening to what you're saying there, it sounds like a fantastic group to work with. You've almost, sometimes as you see, you just strike it lucky with a certain group.
I think I have,
because that group, as you said, I think you mentioned there that they're all in a great collective learning environment. They're all open-minded. They all want to learn. So that allows you to be your best version of yourself, that you don't have to worry about taking care of so many other wee bits. You can actually go, what is my group development for the group aspirationally? And how do I then manage those individuals within that group? So that's obviously getting to know your players. That might be a case of, right, my front five, I'm seeing this consistent, say, area of development. We need to maybe focus in front five in this area, or actually finishing off under pressure here. It's that last pass, that second last pass. We're just not sharp enough on that. We're leaving too many scores out there, whatever it be. You can then look at those individual skills of that. Might be just passing under pressure, or it might be pass selection, or whatever it might be, or it might be collectively as a group. I think because you have struck it well, and you've got a great group who just want to improve, who want to learn, and they are open-minded. And I suppose a phrase I use a lot with my kids is being coachable. In my environment, my place of work is a learning environment, so my kids all want to learn. My biggest thing is actually understanding to the kids that you're not just here to blindly do something. It's actually, we're here to collectively get better, but also within that individually, you've got a responsibility to learn to get better. And there are some players who the penny drops very early and they get that. And there's other players who can make it all the way up to, say, under 16s, and then all of a sudden realise, oh, I see, when you've been doing that extra kick, or you've been doing that extra tackle jackal, or you've been doing that bit of extra fitness, or you've been up in the gym. There, and it takes a bit longer. And as long as the penny drops, I'm never mad at these kids. But because, at least for school rugby, at the minute, unless someone wants to come out and come on board and help take over a team, or a couple of teams, I've got 6 of them, come on, take a team. It's me and them. So that's what you've mentioned. Sometimes in some groups, you strike it gold. Other groups, it's a real battle that maybe it takes you to, for me, November, December to get them all where they need to be, so they can then actually understand how rugby works. But that's a great place to be in for you.
Yeah, and I think, you know, now, regardless of, you know, we win in 2 weeks' time when we play, or we lose, I know that there's an environment now.
They're going to come to train on Tuesday, get up and go again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I know that there's an environment where we'll get it right over the longer term because they've got the right attitude, they've got the right work ethic. Now it might not come in, and I've said this to them. I said it might not come in 2-3 months, but it'll come.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes, we'll have built something that's sustainable, and players understand how we're trying to play and the benefits to as to why we're trying to play that way. But there will always be work-ons, irregardless of winning, losing, drawing, whatever it is. And it's about identifying them and saying, right, okay, that worked well because we've worked on that, and that's what we've wanted to do. But this is an area that we've not quite got yet, so we need to improve that. And if we can improve that, we're going to be 10, 15% better. So strike it lucky. Yeah, probably have. But it's been a few years. I'm not saying I deserve that, but I'm saying is it's nice. It's nice when it lands.
I've got a group of players who are now coming toward the end of their school year, and it's funny that group of players have reflected in timeless kinds of way. Here, sir, mind how we were rotten, and I'm like, define rotten, but it took us to January to win a game, and it was a group of boys who are fantastic boys, and it was every game beaten by 2 tries, 3 tries, some games beaten by 10 tries, but the work ethic, the desire to improve, I knew it was going to come. And sure enough, it was right, Chris, how did that team get on? No, another loss. They watched other teams around them win and be successful. There was nothing wrong with these boys, good boys. But then they got their first win in January. And all of a sudden, and it wasn't a case of we were just waiting on a win. It was actually, there was no other better team that day. It was a big festival thing we went along to in January. It was freezing cold. It was at, where did we play again? Football Stadium, Airdrie. Broadwood, that's it. Coldest place in central Scotland, I think. That place. Two jackets up there. Mm-hmm. Anyway, and they won that day. But not only that did I just watch my team play, I watched all the other teams play. And they were by far just the best rugby players because they knew and they understood their job, their role, they worked together. When they felt themselves getting cold, waiting for their game, they got up, they went moving, they moved the ball around them like that. That's a group to watch. And sure enough, that group then went on from January to all the way through to what was kind of the end of the year, that May time. They went on to have a great tail end of the year. And it was funny now that, as I said, they're 4 or 5 years on from that now and go, mind how we were pants, it took us forever to get a win. I'm like, I do.
But that's what I said to the boys yesterday. They were gutted, they lost.
But look where you are.
37-36, and it could have went either way. We should have managed the game a bit better. But however, I said to him at the end of the game, I says, look, this doesn't define us. We're going to go back on Tuesday. We're going to work on what we believe in, and we're going to address what needs to be worked on.
Yeah.
And I've been at clubs where I've lost the first 4 games of the season and finished third on the table. I remember being at Kilmarnock when there was a lot of guys who had come up for the second team to play first team rugby. Converted a guy from back row to loose head prop. He went on and played in the Premiership, and he became a Scottish Club International. And we were like, I've just lost the first 3 games of the season. What's going on? So then people start looking at each other. So that's when you've got to be strong.
Yeah.
You've got to be. And then all of a sudden we went on a run. I think we finished 4th, 3rd. One of them. We got to the final of the Regional Shield. And, as it is down in that part of the woods, we beat Irvine twice that season. Even though Irvine won the league, we still beat them twice. So that was a big thing. But it was just over the course of that season, I knew we had a player group that if we just worked on certain aspects of the game because that suited their playing style, and it wasn't pretty. They were physical boys who carried hard, got over the gain line, and then with a couple of players out wide who could make a difference and finish. And that's ultimately how we played.
Yeah.
But did we get more out of them than we should have? Probably. But I think, as you know yourself, when you go on a run and you have belief, then you actually don't really care who you're playing against because you have that within your group.
Yep.
So you're like, whatever. It doesn't really. Such and such isn't playing for such. Who cares? So and yesterday, and it was I was raging.
I wa-
I was raging. I was raging because we'd lost the game, but I wasn't raging for me. I was raging for the amount of effort that the boys had put into the
that's
game.
yeah.
I know that was a wee bit for me. But you know, it's just. But 10 years ago, it'd have been hat off on the ground,
Fuming.
water bottles up in the air. It'd have been like, what are we doing? You know, why you not under? You know, where is your light now? No, nah.
But that's
why was I like that?
like that. But that's your individual development and then your collective development
But
with
see now
the
when I
teams
think
you got
back
that.
to that, I think
Correct.
that's horrendous.
I would probably hate, it's the same thing for me. I'm sure if someone's got video footage of me 12, 13 years ago, my first and second year at Wallace High School, when I'm probably parading up and down the side, I'm cheaply chasing the game. I'm going from try line to try line up and doing, standing on people's toes, get off the line. I was probably that guy. Whereas now it's taking time just to be a bit more reserved and just go, no, when the whistle starts, if I'm not having to referee, which I loathe doing, but I understand we need to do it sometimes, you pitch in. But at that point, I love being able to then just step back and actually just go, it's now down to the players. I've given them the tools to go and access the game. What can they go do? I've learned to be much more calm and much more reserved. And even with a loss, kids who are maybe not in my rugby programme, but just in your class, who go, oh, you're raging, you got beat last night, something like that. Well, I wouldn't say raging. I'm frustrated in the fact that I know that the team I picked or the team who were out there, they can play much better than that. So I'm frustrated and disappointed in that one individual performance. 24 hours later, though, just brush your shoulder and just go, shake it off, we need to go again, next job. And then going back to those players and just go, and I've had groups, like you've said there, where you've struck it lucky, who've just gone, actually, sir, we're actually disappointed in ourselves there. We're not going to let that happen again, in which case you don't have to do or say anything. You just go back to what you were doing. You just carry on. You just keep improving. I've also had other groups who've came to me going, talented groups, who've come and just going, sir, we don't want to play games anymore that are going to, we have to give them players and we beat them 50-0 and it's development after 20 minutes. We'd rather go and take 5 or 6 losses and lose within 10 points and have a great game. And if that means going out of our comfort zone and playing much bigger, more powerful schools or opposition or further travel, as long as the schools can support that, sir, we'd rather go and take that. And that really hit me home, that was a collective group. I wasn't a team captain who came to me. It was 4 or 5 boys. You can maybe argue that maybe there's a leadership group who came to me at quite a young age. I've been like maybe 14, 15 years old, just going, sir, that was fun, but we're looking for more. And then I made me reflect as a coach and a teacher, going, right, I need to be a bit more selective with this group, who they play. That one size fits all approach doesn't necessarily suit all your teams, because you might have, because I'm working across multiple teams, I need to know that with this group, they need a lot of G'ing up. This team don't need very much. It's a very quiet word in the ear and just take care of business, go enjoy your rugby and just let them go and do their thing. And you need to make sure, I suppose, something I've had to learn from that early coach 10 years down the line, 13 years down the line, that your approach with each group and how you approach that in training and delivery on game day is very, very different.
I mean, I've got some regrets from how I coached years ago.
I think everyone does. I think if you're being reflective.
I don't know, was it learned behaviour from coaches before? Maybe, in the sense of, well, that must be right.
Because that's what I'm seeing.
That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
That's what I've been coached by before.
That's all I know.
Is that right? And then you don't become, developmental. You become win. Why we not winning? And then you start to say, well, it's because we never done this, and it's never because we've done that. No, it's because we had no identity. There was no identity. We didn't know how we wanted to play.
Mm-hmm.
How we wanted to play? Was it aligned to what our player base was and our skill level was? Was it, did I have a good enough understanding of the players as individuals and as a group, or was I tell? And I can 110% hand on heart say, I must have spent 14 seasons as a head coach, 7, 8, coaching like that. And I would have, and now when I think back, I'd have hated being coached by me then. I would have, because it just wasn't great. And don't get me wrong, I don't have regrets about coaching. Met a lot of lifelong friends. Met a lot of, seen a lot of guys go on and play, Scottish Club International or Scotland Sevens or into the professional game, and it's been really nice. Just probably now I've probably kind of vowed to not be that same coach again. However, there are still times when you need to give the hard word, and you have to be firm. But
Yep.
it's knowing where and when, and I think now, like yesterday, I could have been, oh, what, you know.
You
But
don't.
you learn,
And you
know?
don't have to do that with that group, though. From
No,
what
I
I'm
don't need
picking
to
up
do
on,
that with that group.
because that group will probably, like the cohesion they've got within that group as a collective group of players. Like they've had their game of rugby, they've come up short by a point. Okay, they've enjoyed their wee beer, food afterwards, gone home, done the family thing on Saturday, Sunday kind of thing, bit of recovery. You've probably got these boys back in front of you on Tuesday. I guarantee you don't have to say anything before training on Tuesday. You won't have to do anything, because that group, because they have that unity and that identity,
Aye.
that
And
willingness to
reflect,
learn, they
you know.
reflect. They'll do that in their own time. That
Aye.
when come Tuesdays, go, right lads, Saturday, bit disappointing. It's in the past now. This weekend we've got opposition here at home. Right, our plan for the week is we're going to really focus in on these 3 areas. Those boys will then just go to work, because they'll have probably self-policed within the changing room, self-policed through their kind of their players chat group that
there's
they've
a-
got.
there's a-
You know what I mean? They'll
there's a-
take care of business that
Aye,
way.
there's a group of players there who are.
Training on Tuesday worth filming, because I bet they'll go through the roof
Oh,
for you.
did you know what?
They'll take it up a notch.
I want to set the tone.
Yep.
I'll set the tone, but they'll just go to work.
But
you
then
know?
they'll match that. So if you, and again, that's reflective of you as a person. Say 10 years ago,
Oh.
the tone that you might set and how you set it, the
Oh,
manner of which you set it on
terrible.
a Tuesday.
It'd have been terrible.
Test match Tuesday, brutal.
Oh.
And I've been there. I've had
It's
coaches
Thursday
like that.
night.
We just like, lads, just put the gum shield in and put the head down for an hour and a half here, because we're just going to be knocking absolute chocolate
Aye.
at each other.
Why?
Right? And
know?
you're like, right, okay. And I'm not saying you don't need an element
Because of
of
the coach's
that.
emotion. That's why you would
But
do
that,
that.
but yeah.
The
Whereas
coach is still emotional.
you can set the tone, and as you say, those players will then go to work for you. They'll go to work for each other. That's powerful. That's a great group to work with. That lets you know that you can then really push and get the most or the best out of those individuals and as a group, which is that. How do you then work on that individual development within a player? How do you then work as a group? I think there's no clear and fast answer, because sometimes you've got lots of individuals within your group. Sometimes you've got a really good collective group with not a lot of individuals. It's you. They're very
don't get me
different.
wrong,
Do you know what I mean?
There's certain natural leaders there because of their age and because of their experience. And because of how they play.
Mm-hmm.
But they are very much take everybody along with them. Not like, this is me. You need to do what.
Aye.
It's not like that.
15 bodies in the field. That's what maybe makes our game really unique in that sense of it is a team game. There are other team games. There's handball, there's football, there's basketball, there's loads, hockey, everything. But because within our game, 15 players all have an individual role to do, but without doing an individual role collectively, you can't really amount to much.
No, and when you're coaching, when I'm coaching kids now, obviously that it'll not be long before the pathway nominations come in again.
Yeah.
And I think it's a wee bit sad that players are saying, I hope I get nominated for pathway. I want to get nominated for pathway. And that's all these young players are thinking about. And in my one-to-one sessions, what I try and say to them is, pathway nomination will look after itself. It will be a result of how hard you work. It will be a result of you paying attention to detail to your game and how you're developing week on week. If you just look at, I want to get nominated for pathway, it'll not happen, because it's less likely to happen because you've taken your eye off the ball. And that's what I try and say to them is that, like all the kids that I work with on a one-to-one basis, their sessions are all tailored to them for how they play, how they want to get better, and what their aspirations are. And kids who are in the pathway, tailoring sessions towards their needs. But hearing that, you're like, right, I need to get this into not only their mindset, but also speak to the parents and say, look, we're focusing on this and this, and the result of this will be a development throughout the course of the season, which will allow you to be nominated for the pathway. It's not just look for that and hit here. Get into the pathway as a result of as a result, not just a bit of the nomination, but of the work that goes in the months leading up to it.
I think without getting bogged down in the pathway process, because that could be another 5 hours. I think kids might focus in, at least my kids that I'm thinking of, that third year group. the pathway thing is such a short-term goal. Whereas I would love for a third-year kid to then actually go, no, actually, like what I'm really thinking about is I want to be a great first 15 player. I'm like, that's powerful for a 15-year-old, 14-year-old to actually go, I want to be a great first 15 player. Now, that at the minute for them might aspiration in their heads because of their local feeder club be Stirling. Great. Doesn't matter if it's at Alloa, if it's at Hillfoots, if it's at Falkirk, if it's at Moffat, Clydebank, Kilmarnock, Ayr, Boroughmuir. It doesn't really matter. But I want to be a great first 15 player. That's really powerful. I'm really fortunate that, like, for a couple of clubs I've played at, I remember hitting milestones within that club and getting X amount of first 15 appearances. That for me was real kudos, that even now, that when I get to go back to some of these clubs and watch a game of rugby, you walk in, you see an old president or an old teammate and you have a handshake, and it's like that for me is almost a big bit of respect and a big kind of kudos, as in you've invested something in yourself for a club and a cause and a team. That's massive. Whereas I think maybe for the players at that age and stage, it's too narrow a field for them. When I think bigger picture, because it'll actually make you a better player, which links into your point of it'll take care of itself. A lot of my players maybe leave school and have the aspiration of, right, okay, I'm going to go from, say, Glasgow. Sorry, I moved from Stirling, I moved to Glasgow, right, I'm going to go and play for Hawks or GHA, because they're maybe the biggest two clubs on paper, or that they play at the highest standard. You're like, actually, I'm not saying you're not worthy of that, but do yourself a favour. Go learn how to cut your teeth and play some men's rugby. Go play at Hills, go play at Accies, go play at GHK, go play at West, go play at Cartha. Because see, if you're that good after a season or two,
you'll go there anyway.
You'll go there anyway.
Aye.
But go and learn the game and go and play somewhere where you're going to go and play. Don't then just go somewhere because you want to have that badge on your jumper when you're walking around on a Sunday. Because your developments are still massive. Physically, you're still developing.
Aye.
Mentally, you're still developing.
Yeah. And going to the wrong club will stunt your development.
And that,
because you won't play, or you'll sit on a bench.
Because you might then be in that environment with the wrong team, the wrong coach, and sometimes you do just clash. I've had groups earlier on my coaching stage who were in that sort of maybe 16s and 18s category, where they'd maybe never really had someone in school leading them and demanding something of them. I think someone who maybe took some rugby would just like, yeah, we just put players out and we just play. I came in with a different philosophy, and that wasn't really what I wanted to, where I wanted the rugby to go. I clashed with a lot of these players in the sense of just going, I'm asking you to work, I'm asking you to buy in, I'm asking you to do something here, as opposed to don't just turn up and put my boots on and play. Like, actually, I need a bit more than that. That caused friction. So sometimes just with certain groups, it's not the right fit. Whereas that, you use that argument with those kids when they leave school and go, I'm going to go here. Well, that's really good, but have you actually done any player research? Okay, you might be a lock. They've got 5 guys who are all 6'4" plus, who are all playing first and second 15. You're only 6'2". Like, yeah, I'm not saying you're not the height's the be all and end all, but they've also got 4 or 5 players in your position. No point going to a club when they've got 4 great scrum halves and you be the 5th. Well, there's a club 3 miles away. They've only got 2 scrum halves, right? Okay, go and be the best scrum half there. Like, just be smart with what you do, and that, I think, comes from the kids as well. Also understanding that's that individual development as well on their pathway to being a great first 15 player. Knowing that, and that makes their life easier because they go and playing opportunity and development at that 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old stage, learning how to play and play in the men's game. Vital experience, and you kind of learn that sitting on a bench.
No. And I think we'll finish on that.
Oh, did I just have a powerful comment there to finish?
Yeah, I think we'll finish on that.
That was really good.
I think that rounded up it quite well, aye.